To this day, the murders remain unsolved. Why has no one been brought to justice after all these years? Step inside the occult archive and take a journey into the unknown. We're delving deep into an age-old mystery, the murders at Lake Bodom. This is a question that has perplexed many people over the years. On June 5, 1960, 3 teenagers were viciously murdered and one left clinging to life while camping at Lake Bodom in Finland. To this day, no one has been brought to justice for the heinous crimes, and the case remains unsolved. What could have happened that night at Lake Bodom to cause such bloodshed? The grips of one of Finland's most notorious unsolved homicides, the Lake Bodom murders, has been around for decades. On a warm June night in 1960, 4 Finnish teenagers ventured to Lake Bodom for an evening camping. Mela Ermeli Barklund and Anja Tuulikki-Mäki, accompanied by their boyfriends, Seppo Antero Oarsman and Niels Wilhelm Gustafson, set up camp near Oittor Manor in Espoo, with no idea what was lurking in the shadows. As the midnight hour approached, a sense of unease settled over the peaceful shores of Bodom Lake. In the still of the night, between 4 and 6 a.m., a sinister force descended upon the 4 slumbering teenagers. The unknown assailant brutally took their lives with a vicious stabbing and bludgeoning attack. The only survivor of the massacre, Gustafson, was found with fractured facial bones and stab wounds, painting a picture of a desperate struggle to escape. He claimed to have caught a glimpse of the attacker, a figure dressed in black with piercing red eyes, as they came for them. On June 6, a discovery was made that would leave a lasting impression. 2 young birdwatchers were ambling around the lake when they spotted a tent that seemed to be collapsing in on itself. They noticed a blond man walking away from the area and assumed he might have been setting up or taking down his camping gear. However, there was a hint of unease as they continued birdwatching. A few hours later, a father and son arrived at Lake Bodom for a day of fishing. They too spotted the now infamous tent in the distance. This time, the area was devoid of any activity, and the father grew concerned for the well-being of whoever may have been inside. He approached the tent to investigate, only to be met with a gruesome sight: the bloodied bodies of 4 teenagers, 3 dead and 1 survivor. He immediately grabbed his son and fled to the town to seek help. Meanwhile, a jogger was making his way around the lake when he noticed the damaged tent with broken poles and a large tear in the side panel. Curiosity getting the better of him, he took a closer look and was horrified to find the bloodied scene. When investigators arrived on the scene, they quickly determined that the attacker, with a knife and a mysterious blunt instrument, possibly a rock, struck from outside, piercing the tent's sides and taking the young victims' lives. The murder weapons, however, were never found, leaving a trail of unanswered questions. The killer took several items from the scene, including the keys to the motorcycles, which were left behind. The shoes of Gustafson, the survivor, were left behind, partially hidden, lying 500 meters from the site of the massacre. Unfortunately, the police made a critical error in handling the scene, failing to cordon it off or correctly record the details. The evidence was further contaminated as a crowd of police officers and onlookers trampled the area. Soldiers were even called in to assist in searching for the missing items. Still, they were not able to find several pieces of evidence. The body of Mela Barklund, girlfriend of Gustafson, was found in a state of undress, stripped from the waist down and lying atop the tent. She had suffered the most injuries of all the victims, her lifeless body subjected to multiple stab wounds, even after her death. The other 2 teenagers, Anja Mäki and Seppo Oarsman, were taken with less brutality. Still, the violence of their passing was no less haunting. Gustafson, too, was found lying on top of the tent, barely clinging to life, his body bearing witness to the horrors that had transpired the night before. Over the years, investigating the Lake Bodom murders has brought forth a cast of suspects. But of all the names that have arisen, a few stand out, haunting the memories of those who seek the truth. These are the most notable suspects in the ongoing investigation of the Lake Bodom massacre. In the nearby town of Acquittal, whispers of suspicion swirled around Carl Valdemar Julstrom, the local kiosk keeper known for his hostility towards campers. Despite the town residents' speculations, the police could find no concrete evidence linking him to the murders at Bodom Lake. They were skeptical of supposed reports of confessions made by the disturbed Julstrom. They found no DNA evidence to support his guilt. Shockingly, Julstrom drowned in the very same lake in 1969, in what was widely believed to be a suicide, perhaps due to shame, leaving a letter behind confessing to the murders. The townspeople also whispered that they had seen Julstrom returning from the murder scene on that fateful night in 1960, but fear kept them from calling the authorities. So case closed, right? A book released in 2006 brought to light new theories and evidence surrounding the case, including claims that unfortunately the police had ignored critical evidence due to language barriers and other factors regarding Julstrom being convicted or even questioned thoroughly. It was also passed off as a mentally unstable man falsely confessing and drowning due to his mental capacities. Suspicion also fell upon Hans Oarsman, a man who lived just several kilometers from the shores of the lake. Popular books fueled the theory that Oarsman was responsible for the Bodom killings and other gruesome murders. Despite the public speculation, the police gave little credence to the idea, as Oarsman had a solid alibi for the night of the murders. Yet, a haunting detail emerged on the morning of the murders. Oarsman was seen at a hospital in Helsinki, his clothes stained with blood. Still, no sufficient evidence could link Oarsman directly to the killings. Almost 44 years after the events of that fateful evening, a shocking development occurred. Niels Gustafson, previously not considered a suspect, was arrested. The Finnish National Bureau of Investigation declared the case solved, based on new forensic analysis, painting a picture of a drunken Gustafson excluded from the tent and attacking the other boy. The prosecution claimed that the escalation of the fight resulted in the brutal murders of 3 innocent teenagers. Further, Gustafson's girlfriend bore the most brutal of the attacks, fueling speculation that there was an emotional motive behind the killings. The sudden turn of events cast a new shadow of suspicion and doubt over the still unresolved Lake Bodom murders. The trial began on August 4, 2005, as the fate of Niels Gustafson hung in the balance. Gustafson's defense argued that the murders were committed by one or more outsiders, and that the extent of Gustafson's injuries would have made it impossible for him to carry out the brutal slayings of the 3 innocent teenagers. The prosecution pointed to the fact that Gustafson's shoes, worn by the killer and hidden 500 yards away from the tent, had always been known to belong to him. He was found barefoot on top of the tent, adding to the mystery and suspicion surrounding him. Modern DNA analysis was a crucial piece of evidence for the prosecution, showing the presence of the victim's blood on Gustafson's shoes, but with Gustafson's DNA completely absent, speculating that Gustafson's injuries were self-inflicted after the murders and him attempting to hide his shoes as evidence. The prosecution presented a theory suggesting Gustafson, not an outsider, was the true culprit behind the Lake Bodom murders. They claimed that the lack of Gustafson's blood on the shoes was evidence that his injuries occurred at a different time from the attack on the murdered victims. The only explanation, they argued, was that Gustafson had committed the murders, then staged the theft of items by hiding them, then further injured himself, and returned to the tent barefoot, pretending to be unconscious. The prosecution attempted to bolster their case with the identification of Gustafson as the tall blonde man seen at the scene by the two birdwatchers, as well as an incriminating remark allegedly overheard by others, and an apparent boast of guilt made to a woman a decade after the event. On October 7, 2005, the final verdict was pronounced, and Niels Gustafson was acquitted of all charges. The court stated that the evidence presented by the prosecution was inconclusive and failed to show Gustafson had sufficient motive to commit such a heinous crime. The passage of time has made it impossible to determine the facts with certainty. The state of Finland, acknowledging the mental suffering endured by Gustafson during his long remand time, paid him a sum of €44,900 in compensation. The verdict ended the legal proceedings, but did little to shed light on the still unsolved Lake Bodom murders, leaving the killer's true identity a mystery. The Lake Bodom murders remain one of the most infamous unsolved homicide cases in Finnish criminal history. Despite extensive investigations and multiple arrests, the killer's true identity remains a mystery. The events of that fateful night continue to haunt those who seek the truth, leaving the world to wonder if we will ever know what really happened at Bodom Lake on June 5, 1960. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest content from the Occult Archive. We have many more mysteries and supernatural stories to share with you, so don't miss out. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, stay curious and keep a lookout for the unexplained.